What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here of the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, Number the Side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, and also dressed in white, just like myself, Mr. Tad Desai. And Tad, been a little bit of a break here. I mean, I know we just had 4th of July, and this is sort of when you take your annual trip to go visit a lot of your family up in Michigan. I don't know if it's Detroit specifically, but I think it's like you said, Northern Michigan, I think if I remember correctly, right?
It is Northern Michigan, a great small town by the name of Bay Harbor. It was great, though. I got to enjoy a lot of family time and also got to enjoy a lot of Indian food. So
there you go. That's what you do it.
Parni Puri? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Close enough.
Correct me. Go for it.
Pani Puri. That's how you say it.
You're a better Indian than I am. So anyway,
I guess
So it was great. I got to enjoy a lot of great time with family. But honestly, I'm happy to be back with my podcast family. So bring it in, buddy. Let's do this.
Yeah, this is going to be good times for sure. We definitely still had you covered with some great content, even though we had about a week or so off. We only dropped one episode last week, but we still had a couple episodes the previous week. So make sure you turn back, check out all of that in case you were also on vacation during the 4th of July week and you're enjoying some time with family and just taking a break from everything else. So yeah, check back on lots of those episodes. Lots of great content. But yes, the biggest thing that we kept telling you guys over those past couple of weeks as well is that as soon as the 4th of July was over and we were coming back, we are diving headfirst into a ton of fantasy content.
We're back, baby.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
We're switching over. We're finally going full heavy on fantasy content. I mean, we definitely want to make sure you guys are prepared. So we're going to do an early plug for this. I mean, you see the ticker coming down below. Make sure you follow us on our social media handles. On Twitter, you got me at ArmTheSide23. You got Tad Side94. You got the show handle at The Side Guys. And, of course, we're on Instagram at The Side Guys as well. So, guys, please interact with us. We'd love to give you advice on your draft, on your cheat sheets. Who do we like as sleepers? Who do we think are going to be busts? You know, I mean, just anything and everything when it comes to fantasy stuff. We'd love to help you out. Like I said, we're going to be dropping a lot of great content, both through the podcast, hopefully some articles. Like I said, on social media, we're going to be dropping rankings and graphics for sleepers and busts, and Tad may drop some polls. And I mean, it's like, we're going to do a lot of stuff. So I mean, make sure you're following us because this is the time. Because, I mean, Tad, we're only a couple weeks away from training camp starting. So, I mean, I just saw on Twitter that the Niners released all of their open practice schedules. So, I mean, it's like it's coming. And then right after that, preseason is going to start. And then right after that, Tad, the season is going to kick off. So, it's going to be here sooner than you think. And because of that, fantasy football drafts are going to be here sooner than you think as well. So, we want to make sure that you're prepared. So, we're going to be diving in head first into – I think, Tad, we talked about this, I think, before, but do you think the quarterback is the most important position? Because, I mean, that's where we're starting today. We're going to be diving into a lot of topics surrounding fantasy quarterbacks and just, you know, overall what we think about this year's crop. But just, yeah, like I said, do you think this is the most important position to draft on your roster?
100%, because there's this weird stigma that, yes, a lot of quarterbacks score, 300 plus points, but that almost means that you shouldn't take them in the first round. But I actually disagree. If you have a surefire first round quarterback, you should take them in the first round over a running back, because every year there's a running back that's going to bust out on the scene. A potential example right now is Bijan Robinson. Is like a running back like that could bust out and do your team as well as you could a first round running back that you draft. And so it's very hard to find that same substitute with a quarterback. So I think this whole be afraid to take a quarterback in the first round, that needs to go. So absolutely, I'm not saying go first round quarterback always, but if you have a guy you really believe in, 100% go for him.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into this more as far as just how do we feel about ADP, average draft position, with a lot of these guys, and just we'll get into a little bit
on the stats on that one.
Exactly. We sort of need to go into a little bit just more about just like strategy, especially as like how you're approaching your draft as well. Because, I'm still kind of in the boat that's like, the first round maybe is a little bit too early for me, but
No,
it's like I
don't
can
do it.
understand.
Don't
I
do
can
the thing.
understand it. I can understand it. I think just the way the league is shifting into being more pass first, I think just there's a lot more priority on the quarterback position and making sure you have a good one. And obviously, it's very similar to the tight end position where it's like the top ones are very elite. So it's like if you have a chance to grab one of those guys, i.e., a Patrick Mahomes, a Jalen Hurts, a Josh Allen, it's like if you have the ability to take one of those guys, I can justify them going in the first round. But just I think there's a lot of value later in the draft that you could supplement the rest of your roster. So I'm still in that boat. I know a lot of people, Tad, they feel the same way you do, where it's just like, forget it. I want my guy, so I'm going to take him in the first round. And I could totally understand that. But let's start with our rankings here. And we're not going to go through our full rankings like we did last year. We're going to release that on social media, which once again, you see the ticker down below. Make sure you follow us on social media because we will be dropping our positional rankings from quarterback all the way through kicker and defenses as well. And so we're only going to be talking about who we both have at number 1 in today's episode. And then make sure you tune into social media to see the rest of our rankings for the quarterback position. But just Tad, I mean, I think we discussed this before we obviously recorded. It's pretty obvious who we both like at number 1.
You're right. 3, 2, 1.
Well, wait. Before
Okay,
we get into that, because the big thing too is that both of our rankings are different, yet we still came with the same guy.
That's true.
And
all
so,
right. So do you want to describe how you did your rankings?
So I do mine's the traditional way of just going pre-draft rankings. So these are guys that like as you approach your fantasy draft, these are the guys that you sort of want to order as far as like, okay, I want to take this guy around this point. I want to take this guy around this point. It's like your quarterback rankings heading into the draft. Whereas Tad takes a different approach, which also makes a ton of sense as well, because that also affects your draft strategy as you're drafting. And so Tad, why don't you lay out how you approach your draft rankings?
Okay, so to lay this out for the people, I'm right, he's wrong. Is the way Amir does it is he does it by like how people are going to be drafted. I do it with the way they're going to end. So the way they are going to help you the most. But like he said, is we both end up with the top quarterback, which means I just, that's the best quarterback in the league. And are you ready now? Can I do it now?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, all right. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. That did not line up well at all, but
I didn't know how fast you were going to say it.
I don't. It's been 2 weeks. People were rusty. But anyway, is Patrick Mahomes is easily, whether you're drafting him to be the best quarterback before the season or after the season, bottom line is this dude is the best quarterback. He has not he has not scored less than 39 touchdowns since 2018. Like, this dude is the absolute real deal. And he did it with zero talent at the wide receiver position. Sorry, Juju Smith-Schuster. You kind of proved me wrong there because he was my fantasy sleeper last year, and he did not live up.
That, yep.
Yeah, man, that was a fantasy prediction that really did not turn out well. But regardless, is like that shows Mahomes' value is that like he had nothing to work with, and he still somehow made it work to the point of a Super Bowl championship. So yeah, Mahomes, he's good for like 40 touchdowns. You're good.
Yeah, hands down. Because Tad, a lot of the talk before the season began last season was just that how is this offense going to look, specifically against the passing offense, going to look without Tyreek Hill? Because that was the first season without Tyreek Hill. He is now a member of the Miami Dolphins. And so it's like, is this offense going to be as explosive? Is Patrick Mahomes still going to be the same guy that we saw? Clearly it all worked out because, like you said, they won a Super Bowl. He finished as QB1 in fantasy circles. Tad, here's a great stat that I think sort of replicates just how much progression Patrick Mahomes then took last season, is that he threw a touchdown pass to 11 different players last season. That was tied with Josh Allen, and Josh Allen finished as QB2 in fantasy league circles. So, I mean, clearly it's like without that main weapon, obviously he was relying on Travis Kelce a lot, but besides that, it was more of just like, oh, this guy's open, I'm going to throw him the ball. It doesn't matter who he is. And so that obviously led to him having such a great season.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Name those 11 players.
Okay, I can't do that. Well, one of them was Travis Kelce. One of them was Juju Smith-Schuster. McCole Hardman. Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Okay.
Kadarius Toney. No, he didn't score in the regular season. He scored in the.
Well, he did score in the regular season, but
did he? Okay.
From a Oh man, was that jet pass? That might have
Yeah,
been
because
jet
the jet
pass.
sweep is technically called a
Yeah.
pass now,
Yeah.
so it's
No, that's
possible.
okay. All right. So we'll include him. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I don't know either.
you're
I don't know
forgetting one
either.
big one. I'm surprised you're missing this one.
Jarek McKinnon scored a lot of
Okay,
touchdowns for him.
McKinnon, you're still missing the big one.
Isaiah Pacheco, I think, probably caught the
There it is.
pass.
Okay.
Yeah. I think probably their backup tight end, Noah Gray, I think his name. I think he scored one, if I remember correctly. Okay, you don't have
No,
this in front of you. Okay,
I know
I
I
thought
have
you
it
had
in
it in
front of
front
me.
of you.
I
That's
just
why.
like, no, I was putting you on the spot here.
But just still, like I said, it just sort of speaks to the fact that just like it didn't matter who the main guy was. Just the main thing was just that, oh, if you're open for a touchdown, I'm going to throw it to you. And that's pretty much how he was able to go through. And so, Tad, the crazy thing is that was his first QB1 finish since the first time he became the starter for the Kansas City Chiefs back in 2018, where he threw for 50 touchdowns. He totally broke onto the scene. He finished as a QB1 that year as well. But just what's also crazy, like I said, speaks to the consistency as to why I can sort of justify, like you said, taking a quarterback in the first round, is that of the 5 seasons that he has been the starter of the Kansas City Chiefs, 4 of the seasons he finished in the top 5. The one season he didn't, he finished 7th. So, okay, he was still in the top 10. But then the crazy thing is that, like I said, he had 2 first-place finishes included in those 4 seasons that he finished within the top 5. So, I mean, like you said, Ted, this guy's the best quarterback in the league. There's a reason why he's the number 1 rankings, whether it's, like you said, pre-draft or post-draft. When the league is over, this is the guy that you want, and this is the guy that's, like I said, if you took him in the first round, 100% could justify it.
Well, and that's the biggest thing too is consistency, right? Is I shared this stat on the podcast last summer where if you look at the top 5 running backs, season to season in terms of fantasy points wise, the fluctuation is insane. Is like the top 5 is almost never identical from season to season, but with quarterbacks it almost is. So yes, you could gamble big with a running back that you want to take, because I understand that running back, pool seems shallow, but at the same time, you gotta kind of measure risk versus reward there, where you know what you're getting with Patrick Mahomes. So if I have the second overall pick, I'm honestly contemplating taking Patrick Mahomes, because I know what I'm getting. I know it's a safe bet. And that's just the thing is, like, do you want to really gamble or do you want to go for the safe bet? And when it comes to fantasy football, as someone who is eating at a Denny's for 24 straight hours, I can tell you want to go with the safe bet. So it's one of those things. Like I think the quarterback, if you know he can be consistent, because like you said, he's been consistent for 4 out of 5 seasons here. That's a gamble I'm taking rather than, Derrick Henry.
Well, that's the thing. It's not a gamble. It's consistent. So it's like
Right.
that's something you could rely on. So yeah, like I said, I could understand, I could justify it, but let's get to a topic here that I think people could have differing opinions on. And so I think we're going to talk about this as far as the fantasy quarterback bust this year. And so, I mean, I think we're both, everybody has their opinion about like, oh, well, he has this situation, so I think he's going to be a sleeper. And that's like, no, you could already look at the other side of that debate and be like, no, I think he's absolutely going to be a bust. So let's focus on the bust here first, and then we'll get to the sleepers right afterwards. But just, Tad, who's a quarterback that you just don't think is going to perform all that well this year? Maybe they had a good season last season. Maybe it just things have just changed or whatever it is. But just like, who are you labeling a quote unquote bust this year?
I think it's a sign of team confidence that should not transfer to you confidence. And what I mean by that is the Giants just handed Daniel Jones $160 million.
Yeah, they did.
Not a great call. Not a great call. So I think that it was one of those things where I kind of looked at last year's stats. I was like, holy shit, this guy did better than I thought. And that was because Daniel Jones finished as the 9th best fantasy quarterback last year. But the big reason for that was because he finished with 7 rushing touchdowns, I should say. So, okay, great. But are the Giants going to rush as much now that, they've invested so much money in him? I'm not so sure. And so those numbers are probably going to go down. I'm sure he's still going to knock 3 or 4 right there. But the biggest concern for me is look at who he's passing to. So you have Darren Waller. Sure. I'm not going to say anything bad about Darren Waller other than the fact that he's 33 and he may be past his prime. And then you look at other guys like Jalen Hyatt, Sterling Shepard, Wendell Robinson. Like, okay, they're all great number 2 guys, but they have like there's no number one threat there that I'm really like, oh, okay, no, Daniel Jones is gonna like that's his go-to target. There's no one on the Giants roster that's really screaming that at me. And so I think that with Daniel Jones, with this new contract, a lot of people are going to be drafting him as a quarterback one. And you look back on, let's not forget, if Saquon is healthy, are you really scoring that many rushing touchdowns? Are you going to run it as much with the quarterback if your star running back is healthy? So I think a lot of people are going to be drafting him as a solid QB1 option, but I really think that's a mistake. I see Daniel Jones as a hesitant QB2 option as of now. So I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed with Daniel Jones heading into the season.
I completely agree with this because we talked about this in our episode where we talked about interesting position battles. And which team did I bring up? I brought the New York Giants and the wide receiver situation because I talked about it.
That's why I remember a lot of these receivers' names.
There you go. And I brought up the fact that I was like, I don't know if they have a true number one option in that group. It's like, it's going to be, everything is up for grabs. And so there's a lot of, like you said, solid producers. It's like, I like Darius Slayton. I like Sterling Shepard when he's healthy.
Forgetting one. Thank you.
Yeah. Sterling Shepard, when he's healthy, he's very productive. We talked about Jamison Crowder being a member of this team. He's the veteran of the group, so he could be a solid contributor. Jalen Hyatt's an absolute burner, so I bet you he's going to be able to show some flashes where he can get open down the field and score some points there. Wan'Dale Robinson shows flashes as well. So it's just like, but just that's the thing. It's just like, I don't know if I'm going to see enough consistency from this wide receiver group, which will then lead to Daniel Jones just then not being able to be consistent as a quarterback to then find all these guys. Now, you could hope that, like we sort of talked about with Patrick Mahomes, where it's just like, it doesn't matter who's open. I'm just going to find the open guy and I'm going to move the ball down the field and I'm going to score that way. But then you could also see it where it's like, Brian Daboll was a little bit more conservative with Daniel Jones. He wasn't as aggressive with the Josh Allen that he had in Buffalo, right? So I think you sort of see that where it's like, okay, yeah, they gave him that much amount of money, but they kind of had to because they weren't sure what they were going to do outside of Daniel Jones, right? So it's like, I think just that conservative nature is going to continue going forward until they decide that they want to move on from Daniel Jones. And so because of that, it really limits his fantasy upside, where it's like, yes, the rushing ability, like you said, is there, but just I don't know if we'll see it enough to make him finish within the top 10 again. I don't see that happening. And
again, I cannot overemphasize this enough. With Saquon Barkley hopefully being healthy, I think that will really cut into Daniel Jones' rushing numbers as well. But Amir, are you ready to play our favorite game?
I guess so. Let's hear
it. It's time to play over-under.
Okay.
Over-under. One year in his career that Daniel Jones has thrown for over 25 touchdowns.
1 year. So over under 1. So I guess over under 1.5, yes. Right? So you're pretty much saying whether it's 1 or not.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got it. I think he did it last year. I'm going to say 1.
You are correct, but you're wrong on the year.
Oh, okay, damn it.
So he threw for over 25 touchdowns, so 26 in 2019.
Okay. In 2019, okay.
Since then, he has not thrown for over 25 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You can't trust that when it comes to fantasy. You can't. He's not trustworthy. And I maybe it's, again, we're waiting for this ADP data to come out, and I'll be fascinated to see where he lands. But something in me is just telling me a lot of people are going to be drafting him and maybe it's because one of my best friends is a Giants fan and is talking him up. But I feel like a lot of people are going to be drafting Daniel Jones as a QB1, and I feel like that's a massive, massive mistake.
I agree with that one. Now, I'm going to go and give you a quarterback in the same division that definitely a lot of people are going to be drafting as a QB1, but just I don't think I'm going to see the same production level that can make him warrant being a QB1. And I'm going to go Dak Prescott, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And so the big thing that I think some people are just maybe going to fail to understand that Kellen Moore made this offense a lot more dynamic than a lot of people realize. And the fact that he was fired, and he is now a member of the Los.
Jerry Jones will look for any person to put their head on a spike or whatever. But like, good God, like look in the mirror, man.
And so now he is a member of the Los Angeles Chargers coaching staff as their offensive coordinator. And I very much like that. I brought this up on an episode, I think a while back, that Justin Herbert's a guy that I'm very much in on as far as the fact that he's pairing up with Kellen Moore. But
Quentin Johnson. Sorry.
That's one of the reasons why I like
Allergies.
Justin Herbert, though. That's one of the reasons why I like him, though, too, because he has all the weapons, including the rookie Quentin Johnson out of TCU. But let's jump back to Dak Prescott as to why I just am not a fan of him this year. Is that Mike McCarthy has said after, they had the press conference and like, why is Kellen Moore let go? Like, what are you going to do that's different? He said, I want to emphasize running the ball more. That's great for Tony Pollard. I mean, that's fantastic for Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn, who they just drafted as well. And Malik Davis, I think, is their number 2 guy currently right now. So it's like, that's great for all of them, but that doesn't spell a lot of great things for Dak Prescott. Like, I mean, there's a reason why he was so good. So, Dad, I'm going to give you his fantasy finishes every single season that Dak Prescott has played in the year. So the first 3 seasons without Kellen Moore, as a rookie, he finished 6th. So he actually came onto the scene pretty well. Okay. Then he finished 11th. And then he finished 10th. So it actually is not bad. Not bad. Now with Kellen Moore,
middle tier.
Here's where it takes the step up, though. With Kellen Moore, he finished 2nd. His very first season with Kellen Moore.
2nd?
Second. Yes.
2nd.
Finished 2nd. Yes. Holy and that's why I'm so high on Justin Herbert, because I think that instant sort of, just the change is going to make such great wonders for Justin Herbert. So 2nd with his first season of Kellen Moore.
That's good.
30th, unfortunately, the next season, but he got hurt. He only played
that's when that's when his ankle went the wrong way, right?
Yeah. Let's we talk about that probably better there. Then he finished 7th. He came back, he's completely healthy. So 7th is a pretty good finish too. And then unfortunately last season he finished 19th because he also missed 5 games last season as well. So unfortunately he wasn't healthy under Kellen Moore as much as we probably wanted to, especially Cowboys fans probably wanted him to be. But when he was healthy, he was very productive under that offense. So it's just going from a very modern, pass-friendly, dynamic offense to a more, put it nicely, old school sort of traditional approach under Mike McCarthy. It's not going to benefit him from a fantasy prospect because he's not the same runner that he was when he was younger either. So it's like you can't benefit from those rushing touchdowns that you used to be able to. He's going to get you like maybe 3 to 4, but nowhere near the 6 or 7 that he was getting earlier in his career, as well as all those rushing yards. Now it's just mainly just scrambling just to escape out of a broken play and sort of get you positive yardage. That's all he's going to give for you. Now it's just all through the air. And then I think just the biggest thing, the external factor too, is just that while he may have a good season, I think other people are going to have better seasons, which is going to drop him out of the top 10, potentially out of the top 12 as well. I mean, obviously people will see our rankings when we release them, but maybe a couple of us, either of us have him outside of our top 12. So, I mean, we will see there. Okay. So Tad's giving you, not so much of a tease. He's telling you.
I'll admit it right away. He is not my top 12, and I'm just going to put it in here a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm so glad you brought up his rushing touchdowns because I feel like that's almost an illusion or something that people talk themselves into of oh, no, he's a runner. He gets a lot of, rushing touchdowns. He hasn't had over 5 rushing touchdowns since 2018.
Exactly.
So and I know it's and trust me, this made me feel very old at the time, but 2018 was 5 years ago. So he has not had over 5. 5 is not that many. Yeah. 5 rushing touchdowns in 5 years.
And really quick, Tad, 2018 was the last season that he played without Kellen Moore.
There you go.
That also tells you something too.
That's the whole thing is maybe they, implement him as a rushing attack, but I just don't see it, especially after that ankle injury. They saw what happened after he goes down. So I think they'll play him safe. And it's just, he lacks the rushing ability to really make it, like a Jalen Hurts type where okay, the rushing ability makes up for his lack of passing ability. But I don't think Dallas is really going to utilize him to his full potential. I don't blame them, but at the same time, also fantasy-wise, doesn't mean he has a whole lot of value to me.
Exactly. So like I said, the external factors, it's like I said, I'm very high on Herbert. I think he's going to finish in the top 10. Lamar Jackson, fully healthy. I think he's very much going to finish in the top 10. Aaron Rodgers, with his bevy of weapons, he has a good shot at finishing in the top 10.
Hard knocks Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. Hard knocks Aaron Rodgers. If Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy, he's got a good shot at finishing in the top 10. And the last guy I want to bring up, Jared Goff, with all the hype surrounding Detroit, and he had a pretty good season last year. I think he has a good shot at finishing in the top 10 as well. And then just the last thing I want to bring up with Dallas and Dak Prescott here as to why I'm just not a huge fan of him this year is that this offense, I just don't feel as confident in the overall offense compared to previous seasons, because it's like you lost Dalton Schultz. He's playing at Houston now. You released Ezekiel Elliott. And I mean, I know he wasn't the same Ezekiel Elliott that you drafted, but he was still a productive rusher for you and effective getting short yardage for you. So, I mean, that was still something you could rely on, right? So that's gone as well. You added Brandon Cooks, which is a good addition. But Michael Gallup, after his injury, he just didn't look like the same guy pre-injury. So you wonder about that trio. Like, I mean, you can totally trust CeeDee Lamb, but outside of that, it's just like, I don't know if I trust Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup. You got the tight end position with that Dalton Schultz. Now you got Jake Ferguson, and you got, help me out here if you can name another tight end on the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm on it. They drafted somebody.
Peyton Hendershoot, I think his name is. I think he's like a third string guy. So just like,
didn't they draft Schoonmaker, the tight end?
That sounds right. Yes, I think they drafted Schoonmaker. So like they got that there. So it's like unsure what you got at the tight end position. So hopefully they can break out, but we don't know.
I got it. Ferguson, Payne, Hendershot, Luke Schoonmaker, and Sean McKinnon.
Okay. But yeah, they drafted Schoonmaker.
That's a whole lot of nope there.
Exactly. And then the last thing is that as much as we were optimistic about Toddy Pollard, this is the first season that he's the primary back. So can he be as effective? Like, I mean, we've seen it at times as flashes last season, but now that everybody knows he's the main guy, can he still be that same dynamic runner we saw last season and seasons prior? So that sort of makes me worry a little bit as well. So just overall, just like all those factors combined, it's like, is Dak Prescott going to be terrible? No. Should you not draft him? No. But I'm just saying that at the value and where his ADP is most likely, I wouldn't take him there. I'd wait and take somebody else instead and let somebody else deal with the problems that Dak Prescott is going to bring.
And you touched on something so important that I love is that a lot of people don't take into account when they draft a quarterback. What's their receiving room looking like?
Exactly.
It's because exactly what you said with Brandon Cooks. He's a good receiver, but he doesn't fill the role they need. The role they need is an every down receiver who will push those chains that will get, the 5-10 yard slant routes. Michael Gallup maybe can do that. Brandon Cooks definitely is not that. Like he's more of a stretch the field guy. CeeDee Lamb potentially, but we never really seen him as a true number one target before. I know a lot of Cowboy fans are gonna be yelling at me like he's been a number one for the last 2 years. No, he hasn't. Get out of here. So that's the whole thing is like, can CeeDee Lamb fill that role of like, okay, this is the receiver we can go to move the chains? I don't know. And like you said, like with a lot of people drafting Dak as a QB1, if your number one receiver is, I don't know, not a great sign. So that's the whole thing. It's just until I see how this Cowboys offense works with a new coordinator, with a new running back. And let's not forget a very aging offensive line too.
Yeah,
so
that's a big one too. They do got some young pieces. It's overall it's hard to trust. Yeah, it's hard. It's a
lot of question marks. And no, I'm with you. Spoiler alert, I pointed myself is Dak Prescott did not break my top 12 in terms of rankings, and it was tough. It was tough. I'm not gonna lie. He was close, but didn't make the cut.
Exactly. So yeah. But let's flip things around here, Tad. Let's get to the positive side here. So instead of talking about buzz, let's talk about some sleepers. So guys that maybe people are undervaluing that can end up having very productive seasons in fantasy football here in 2023. So Tad, give me your sleeper this year at the quarterback position.
I'm going to attempt this. Tua Tagovailoa.
You actually got it.
Oh,
You actually got it. Talk about an upset, folks. About an upset, folks.
For more upsets, check out our friends at BetOnline. So Tua, as I will refer to him from now on.
There you go.
I think a lot of people are going to be scared away from his injury history, which is fair. I'm not going to say like that's a bad decision or anything, but I think that if you are willing to take that risk, and this is where, and keep tuning in for the podcast because we will provide plenty of good backup options for you as the draft season nears closer. But if you can find a good QB2 to back him up, Tua is an excellent sleeper because I think like I said, I think a lot of people are going to be scared away from him because of the injury history. But people are forgetting this guy was a borderline MVP candidate before he suffered his second finger twitching concussion, which was very freaky.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing is, do the Dolphins keep him safe? And I think that the Dolphins have so much invested in this guy that they are going to keep him safe. And Tyreek Hill's coming back. This entire offense is coming back. There's no change to this offense. And let's not forget, the Dolphins are also, in my book, favorites to land Dalvin Cook as well. So if Dalvin Cook I know, I can hear people screaming in my headphones right now. Yes, I'm aware that there are contractual differences among both teams. That Dalvin Cook wants more money, Dolphins aren't willing to give him. I think they'll work it out. But if Dalvin Cook ends up in Miami, this is an easy pick for a sleeper, because this is a guy that a lot of people are going to draft as QB2 due to injury concerns. But again, he threw for 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he missed 5 games last year. Imagine what you could do with a full season. So as long as Miami is smart enough not to keep running the ball with him, or, God forbid, as long as he doesn't suffer another concussion, he's good to go. Like, this is an MVP candidate, like, geared to, like, catapult your fantasy team to the championship. So I think why you may be scared of Tua, which is totally fair, I'm telling you, it's worth the risk as long as you have a good backup plan.
100%. So he's a really good candidate to be undervalued, like I said. But I think here's the bigger word that I would describe for Tua Tagovailoa after the season is over: overlooked. I think a lot of people are going to look at Tua Tagovailoa exactly what you said, where it's like, I don't know if I trust the injury history. It's like, I don't know if he can play a full 17 games.
They were freak injuries too. That's another thing to keep in mind. It's not like, he tore a hand. It's not like Julio Jones syndrome, where it's like, he tore a hammy, he's dealing with that. It was a freak injury, 2, unfortunately, in the same season. Yeah. And that's something to keep in mind. But sorry, keep going.
No, you're all good. So
I'm interrupting you so much.
So I think just the biggest thing is just people are going to, like I said, overlook him because of that injury history. But when he was healthy, they got speed on this roster. You talked about Tyreek Hill. I mean, he had such a sensational season. You talk about Jalen Waddle. He was able to beat his running mate, and they were both so sensational as far as the receiver position, right? So, I mean, when he's healthy, he's able to get the ball to these guys, because that's something that you worry about. That's something I've always worried about as a Niners fan. It's like, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo's our quarterback. We're not going to be able to throw it deep as often, but that's not an issue in Miami. He can get the ball down the field to these speedsters when they're open like that. He is very good with his completion percentage, so he's hitting the open routes as well. So, I mean, this is a guy, when he's healthy, he's a very, very effective quarterback, and that makes him a very, very good producer in fantasy football as well. So, yes, I can understand there's a little bit of risk there, but like Tad said, if you back him up with a solid option on your bench, he's 100% going to be a difference maker. And if he stays healthy the full season, you got yourself an absolute steal.
How about this? If you somehow find a way to draft both Tua and Aaron Rodgers,
woo! It is possible. It is possible.
I think Rodgers will slip in a lot of drafts.
I think he will. He will, because you look at the season that he had last year, and people are just like, okay, well, now that he has the weapons, will he return to form, or is this just who he is?
People are going to shy. So, go for the quarterbacks that people are going to shy away from. It's a big risk. I will not say that, but that's a gamble that I really do think will pay off.
But yeah, a Tua Aaron sort of quarterback combo there. That's pretty good. I do like that as well.
If you're in my fantasy league, I'm lying.
I'm going to get to my fantasy sleeper here, and I'm going to go with a guy that I brought up before, but I really want to emphasize that I'm pretty high on this guy. So I'm going to the NFC North. I'm going to the Minnesota Vikings. So that means I'm going to Kirk Cousins. And so we've talked about this before, that Kirk Cousins is entering a contract year. He's entering a contract year, and I mean, he's definitely past his prime as far as being an older quarterback, but he's still effective as a quarterback. And the fact that the quarterbacks get paid so much money, if he can absolutely go out and ball out, which I very much expect him to do, he's looking for his last big payday before he decides to eventually hang them up with his final team, wherever it is, whether that's back in Minnesota or whether it's somewhere else. But just, you look at last season, first season under Kevin O'Connell, Cousins had a career high 604. Not this again. I don't want to do this again. Seriously. Cousins had a career high 643 passing attempts. He also threw for over 4,500 passing yards for the second time in his career. He was also 5th in the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. So, I mean, this guy, was leading this offense on all facets. And yes, it helps when you have Justin Jefferson to throw to, who had a sensational season. He won Offensive Player of the Year. But
who gives a shit? He's still on the roster. Like,
Exactly.
what does it matter how you put those numbers up?
But I think just the biggest thing that we're going to see in this offense is that they got some smaller upgrades that I think is really going to benefit the offense overall, which will then benefit Kirk Cousins.
Be careful calling Jordan Addison small.
I'm talking about as far as like upgrades at the position, right? Where it's like Jordan Addison is an upgrade over Adam Thielen. Like, I mean, I think Adam Thielen had a productive season last year, but just Jordan Addison stepping into that secondary role to pair up with Justin Jefferson. And we talked about KJ Osborne, another guy that we like a lot. That trio there, that's going to be really effective as far as, you know, having your X, your Y, and your Z set now at the receiver position. Where it's like Adam Thielen, I think you could see the age a little bit more. He just wasn't the same route runner that he was, moving the chains the same way that he was. So he's now playing at Carolina. But like now you have a young trio that I think can be very effective for this passing offense. And now you're getting a full season of TJ Hawkinson, because you remember they traded for him midway through the season last year, and he was absolutely tearing it up for Minnesota Vikings as well. But now you got him for a full season, and we're going to see if he can sort of translate his contract year into a big contract as well in the offseason. So you're pairing up 2 contract year guys together. Like, I mean, that's dangerous.
Not to spoil anything, I haven't seen your guys. I swear to God, this is not for the show. I have not seen Amir's rankings. He has seen mine, but I think my ranking for TJ Hawkinson may shock some. He is pretty high in my rankings.
Interesting.
Clearly, Amir is not taking a look at what I emailed him.
No, I have not seen it yet, so I have no idea. And then also you have to look at the fact that they're switching over from Dalvin Cook, who we just talked about. He's no longer a member of the Minnesota Vikings, to Alexander Mattison. And so it's like, once again, very similar to Tony Pollard, where it's like, he has been good in some spot starts when Dalvin Cook went down, but now that he's the primary guy, is he still going to be the same effective runner that we saw previously? And then also we had to talk about the fact that they drafted Dwayne McBride to be a backup as well. So it's like, are they going to do something similar with Cook and Madison, where they use both in tandem, and now they're going to do it Madison and McBride here, both in tandem here in Minnesota. So it's like, either way though, I like both of those guys in the passing game to benefit Kirk Cousins. So it's just like, overall, I very much like the system to benefit Kirk Cousins. And so currently what I've been seeing as far as articles of fantasy rankings and just positional rankings is that he is being ranked outside the top 10 for the position. But with the offense that he has and just the contract year and Kevin O'Connell's passing first mentality year, I think he finishes in the top 5. Like, I mean, I very much see that. I very much see that he has that type of production, because he finished his QB8 last year. So, I mean, it's not that much of a steep change as far as going from 8 to number 5. I think he's going to throw for more passing yards. He's going to throw for more passing touchdowns, and that's automatically going to increase him to possibly be in that top 5. I'm not guaranteeing he's going to finish in the top 5, but he has that potential with everything surrounding him and just all the external factors surrounding him. He has that potential. So I'm very high on Kirk Cousins this year.
Wow,
Kirko 2 chains, as they like to call him.
Don't ever do that again.
That's what they call him. So I had to say it.
Who is they?
The media guys who followed him last year when he was wearing 2 chains and no shirt. Right. I mean,
regardless, is top 5. That's gutsy. I currently, spoiler alert, I have him ranked as my number 12 quarterback. I think he will be good. I do really like what he has to work with KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison, and Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson. There's a lot for him to succeed there, but I've been burned too many times by Kirk Cousins, where it's just like, he's good, not great. Like you said, like, he was number 8 last year?
He finished QB8 last year.
Correct. Yeah, QB8. So I feel like that's a sweet spot. It's just outside of the top 5. So I think if you want a consistent, we spoke about this earlier, if you want a consistent good quarterback, 100% Kirk Cousins. Like, if you disagree with me with what I spoke to start off this episode, where yes, you need to take the QB in round 1. If you're one of those people who's like, no, I'm taking a wide receiver and running back, I'm shoring up all those positions, great. Kirk Cousins is your guy, because he will be available there in the mid rounds, and he will probably finish in the top 10. So he's a safe bet, but sleeper,
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. The main reason that I called him a sleeper is because, like I said, he's being ranked outside of the top 10, but in some cases
Outside
outside
of
the
the top
top
10 is
12 too.
ridiculous.
Outside the top
That
12
yeah,
too. Like I've seen a few
no, that's
articles that published
ridiculous.
it that
That's
way too. So
ridiculous.
that's why I see it's like I like the value that he's 100% going to finish in the top 10. But like I said, he's got a good shot to finish in the top 5.
I'll say this: I trust Kirk Cousins a hell of a lot more than I trust Dak Prescott.
Exactly. I feel the same exact way.
And
So
if a sniper bullet comes through because I'm in Dallas, now you know why.
all right. So like we talked about, maybe top 5 for Kirk Cousins is a little bit of a hot take. I don't know how you want to put it there, but let's actually get to our hot takes at the position here, Tad. So, I mean, we both decided to sort of look at the position and figure out just like, what could be a sort of bold prediction for this position that we think will come true. So, Tad, what is your bold prediction, hot take for the fantasy quarterback or just the quarterback in general this year heading into 2023?
I mean, Kirk Cousins is your sleeper. I'm going to go with my sleeper here. It's Jared Goff. I think that Jared Goff is going to throw for 35 touchdowns this year. And I know what people are thinking. I was like, well, Jameson Williams just got suspended for 6 games. How could he possibly do that? He threw for 29 touchdowns last year without Jameson Williams due to injury. And so Jameson Williams has gone for 6 games, right? So when he comes back, Jared Goff will have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Marvin Jones, and Jameson Williams. Combine that with a stronger running game in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Am I saying that right? Jamar?
Yeah, you actually said it right. You used to say Jamar, but it is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Right there. But with a stronger running game, a strong receiving core, I think that Jared Goff is my favorite pick for a fantasy sleeper this year. So I think 35 touchdowns for Jared Goff. Book it.
One guy that you left off that a lot of people have been talking about as far as like training camp and just like the coaching staff is very high on him. The rookie Sam Laporta out of Iowa.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, even fellow Iowa alum George Kittle, when they had tight end university recently, he said, "I'm very high on this guy." The fact that he fell quite a bit, I was very surprised that he didn't go in the first round. So yeah, I think Sam Laporta going there. Like I've already said before on this podcast many times, it's like I'm not usually very high on rookie tight ends, but if I had to pick one, I'm liking Sam Laporta as far as breaking out the most with his situation.
And that's very telling because if memory serves, they drafted a second tight end too, didn't they?
I don't know if they drafted a second tight end. I know Green Bay went double. They got Luke Musgrave and they got Tucker Kraft.
Either way, we were questioning the Laporta decision. I remember that
a little bit, yeah, because I think there were some other players available.
Michael Myers was still Myers. The serial killer was available there, but Michael Myers, the Notre Dame tight end, was still available when they were on the clock. I remember that.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to get to my fantasy hot take here. So I'm going to go with a lot of people sort of like, breakout athlete last year. He was in the running for the MVP. He was running for the offensive player of the year, Jalen Hurts. And I think he improves on the season that he had last year. And I think he throws for over 4,000 passing yards and he scores 45 total touchdowns. So that is my hot take here. And there's a lot of talk.
Stop. What are you smoking? Because I want to hit.
So there's a lot of talk about how good this defense is going to look with their all Georgia defense or whatever, right? And just like how impressive it was last season and Hassan Reddick having such a good season for them and all this stuff. And so like a lot of people talk about the defense. People forget how good this offense was. Like, I mean, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, there's a lot of great pieces. There's a reason why their offense was, they're so good. Like, I mean, they finished second in the league in total yards, the second in the league in total scoring as well. They're only behind the Kansas City Chiefs, and, makes sense why the Kansas City Chiefs end up winning the Super Bowl, right? But we saw in that game in the Super Bowl that it was a track meet. Both teams were scoring back and forth, left and right sort of thing.
I was there for that.
You were there, exactly. You saw it in person. And so it's just like you see that just this offense is able to keep up with a lot of these offenses that are very high potent. So it's like you see that there. But just like I talked about, Hurts was in the conversation for winning the MVP award and also the Offensive Player of the Year award. So he finished with 3,701 passing yards and 22 passing touchdowns, and then combined that with 760 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. So he finished just a shade about, 4,400 yards, about 4,400 total yards, and he had 35 total touchdowns. Now, what I'm saying is that he's going to increase those passing numbers up. and he's going to score more touchdowns because he's increasing those passing numbers up. So he's going to have more passing touchdowns. His rushing touchdowns might come down a little bit, but I think we're going to see a very, Hurts is going to take it to another level. And it's just going to make this offense just that much better. Because, I mean, he had an outstanding season last year. I think the thing that sort of worries me, which is going to benefit Jalen Hurts, is that they replaced Miles Sanders, who was able to stay relatively healthy, with two guys that have a bit of injury history, DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny missed 12 games last season. DeAndre Swift, missed 5 games last season. So if they were to miss any time, as much as like Kenny Gainwell, I bet you they're going to lean on Jalen Hurts a little bit more to run it. And on top of that, maybe lean on him to pass the ball a little bit more as well, because Dallas Goedert got hurt a little bit. He came away midway through the season. Then he became a productive member there. We obviously saw how good AJ Brown was. And then Devontae Smith was just a good supplemental piece too. So, I mean, I think this offense is going to rely more on Jalen Hurts this season with the potential injury risk there in the backfield, that I think he's going to surpass those numbers that he had last season. And so, if he puts this feet up, I think he very much can finish as the QB1 in fantasy circles.
Bert, say for me again, how many passing touchdowns did he have last year?
22.
22. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. And how many rushing touchdowns?
13.
13. Okay. So 22 plus 13. Carry the 1. Divide the 0. Okay. So that's 35.
Yeah.
How in the world does he pass or score 10 more touchdowns? It's ridiculous, because exactly like what you say is best case scenario, then they'll start running with him more. Well, you know what comes with running with a quarterback more is injuries. And so I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to poo-poo on your hot take, but man, 45 touchdowns, total touchdowns. Credit where credit is due.
Passing and rushing. Yes.
Yeah, credit where it's due. I don't know. I don't trust his longevity. I don't trust his ability to stay, healthy or stay consistent, for that matter. Is that we don't know how this running game is going to look without Miles Sanders. We don't know if this team can repeat the same performance they showed last year. Maybe it was a flash in the pan. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. But that is a gamble I'm not going on.
That's fair. That's
the definition of a hot take.
Exactly. And I felt like it was a pretty hot take.
So, that's a great hot take.
I also, like I said, I believe in it. I believe in it. So
that was so scalding hot. I took my hand right off the pan when it started.
Okay, I thought you were going in a different direction.
I don't know where you thought I was going.
I was like, whoa, that's not the type of podcast we run here, my friend.
My mother listens to this. Come on.
Exactly, yes. Let's keep it a little bit more PG, my friend. I know you drop a few F-bombs every so often, but
woo. A lot of minefields here.
Oh, gosh. But a great way to end the episode, I think. That's the best way to do it. Like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, we're going, we're diving headfirst into the pool here. We're giving you a lot of great fantasy content. We started with quarterbacks today. We're 100% going to keep going with this. We're going to give you running backs, receivers, tight ends, defense, kickers. I mean, all of that, everything in between. We're going to give you sleepers, busts, deep sleepers, breakouts. You name it. We're going to be covering it on the podcast. If not on the podcast, you're definitely going to be getting some graphics on social media. So, make sure you're following us on socials. You see the ticker down below. We plugged this so many times, but I think the big thing that we keep plugging it is because we want to help you. We want to help you win your leagues. We want to help you plan your drafts. We want to help you with your trades once we get in season. So, make sure you're hitting us up. You find us on Twitter. You got me at @TheSide23. You got Tad at TadTheSide94. You got the show handle at @TheDecideGuys. And, of course, we're on Instagram at @TheDecideGuys as well. So, please interact with us. Let us know your questions. We're happy to help you out with anything and everything that you want to discuss fantasy football wise, because we want to win you some leagues this year for sure. So make sure you interact with us. Like we talked about, we took about a week off last year. We did drop, last week, I should say. But last year we took a week off too. We took a week
off last year too.
Yeah, last year we took a week off too. So I wasn't completely incorrect there. But last week we took a little bit of time off. So, maybe you didn't know that we dropped an episode last week. But the best way you can find out, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can listen right on the Elliott Network website as well. Hit that subscribe button. Always be up to date with our podcast. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you're always up to date with our videos as well. And the big thing, too, make sure you're supporting our parent network, Elliott Network. Without them, there would be no us for sure. So they're giving you a lot of great content, because as the seasons are coming close, we're talking about training camp. They probably got a lot of articles coming out with Chargers training camp and Rams training camp. But then also, NFL season's coming close. College football season's coming close pretty too. So they got you covered with Trojans football and Bruins football as well. Sorry, Ted, no Horned Frogs football on our network, but maybe eventually. We'll see what happens here.
Just until we beat you guys again.
But yeah, make sure you're following all the great content that they have there with LA Sports Specific, and of course make sure you're following everything that we're doing to give you fantasy football content for sure. But guys, to everybody who's already listening, who's subscribed, to watching us, and I mean just anything and everything in between, guys, we really can't thank you enough.
Hey, not much I can say that Murr hasn't already. Draft season is upon us. If you want the best advice, hit that follow button. Follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Guys, Murr killed in fantasy football last year with the LAFB crowd. I killed it with my personal friends crowd. I am telling you, if you want to win your league, you listen to us. You watch us. So keep tuning in, because we are not finishing just with the QB rankings. We have running back rankings, receiver rankings, tight end rankings, apparently kicker rankings, which I need to make because I did not know we were doing that.
All right, you got some time.
Yeah, well, that
defense. We're going to cover your defenses.
I do have my defense ready.
Okay,
I do have my defense ready. So bottom line is we have all the rankings coming for you. We have all the draft advice coming for you. So keep tuning in over the next couple of weeks, because we will help you get that championship. I make that absolute promise to you. So as always, everyone, please, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And please, as always, stay safe.